Program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Mostly sunny today, a high of 56. Partly cloudy tonight, breezy late, a low of 43. Breezy tomorrow, sun and areas of high clouds in the morning, then mostly cloudy in the afternoon with a couple of showers, a high of 66, a low of 43. For Friday, cooler with a bit of rain, a high of 48, low of 33. For Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 52, low of 34. For Sunday, turning cloudy and warmer, a high of 65, low of 57. For Monday, showers around, high of 64, low of 59. Tuesday, a morning shower, high of 59, low of 40. Sunrise is at 6:46 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 7:50 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story, Ray Dunleavy, joke about end of drought. Sabres announcers share fans' excitement about a playoff run. Rob Ray is an analyst who occasionally becomes a comedian during Buffalo Sabres broadcasts, so it isn't surprising who he blamed for the National Hockey League's record playoff drought before it ended Saturday. "Can I say that Rob blamed me all these years?" said play-by-play announcer Dan Dunleavy during a recent interview with the team during the MSG broadcast. "I'm superstitious," said Ray. "Players and athletes are superstitious, so it has been Dunleavy's fault." "No, I'm kidding. We joke about it." The Dan Dunleavy drought officially ended at 3:15 p.m. Saturday, 13 years after he was hired in 2013 to share duties with the late legend Rick Jeanneret. It was also 2 years after the Sabres last saw the playoffs, which led to some good-natured joking from Ray. The Sabres are no longer a joke, which means the Rob and Dan show that was canceled annually in April at the end of the regular season can be extended into May or even June. Dunleavy and Ray are back in the spotlight with the team's soaring TV ratings bound to rise even higher during the first round of the playoffs. They've received love from out-of-town announcers who have commiserated with them about the 14-year playoff drought. "Every group that comes in, they're like, 'Oh my God, we feel sorry for you,' said Ray. I'm like, 'Why?' Now they're like, 'I'm so happy for you.' They're happy we're getting a taste of it." Dunleavy said John Forsland of the Seattle Kraken and Prime Video and Ken Daniels of the Detroit Red Wings were among those who are telling them how happy they are that he and Ray are finally going to taste the playoffs. There's a level of respect among the guys who do the jobs that we do because they know when it is not going well, you do have your challenges in the dog days when you try and find the story to entertain and make the audience happy with the job of what you do, regardless of where the team is in the standings, said Dunleavy. It has been nice. They deserve sympathy from the out-of-town news crews because, while doing these long-suffering the Sabres fans had the chance whether to watch the games during the drought. Dunleavy and Ray and Jeanneret didn't. Now that Dunleavy, who became the Sabres' all-time voice 4 seasons ago, and Ray look at it that way. They love their jobs, understand that they are fortunate to be among only 32 announcer teams in the NHL, and believe the job is to explain what is going on, whether the team wins or loses. The announcer said it isn't a close call when asked if they or fans had it worse during the drought. "It's the fans who are paying to be here and taking time out, being dedicated," said Ray. "If the fan is not there, the organization is not there. It is far more relieving or more excitement for the fans." Dunleavy and Ray feel the excitement surrounding the team led by Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Alex Tuch, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen when they are out. "Everyone's excited," said Dunleavy, who lives in Eden. "I'm not in the heart of the city, but certainly any time we're at any event somewhere, people are very excited and they're very hopeful that they've been kind of anticipating something that they haven't had a chance to watch or listen to in a number of years. A Toronto native, Dunleavy said Buffalo's fight-filled 8-7 victory on March 8th over the Tampa Bay Lightning, in which he and Ray were at their best, was a reminder of what he had been told about Sabres hockey. The first focal or flashpoint for me would be that Tampa game and just feeling this building in Buffalo for the first time in my 13 years being here, said Dunleavy. I've certainly been around for games where they scored 8 or 9 goals, but I've not been around for a game where they came back multiple times in a game, and not just one goal comebacks, but multiple goal comebacks, and guys sticking up for one another. You always heard what Sabres hockey has meant to the city in the past, and from someone who's been here for 13 years, that's the first game like that I had lived through, and I was so glad I did. Dunleavy recalled seeing Ray in the hallway outside the locker room after the game. He's kind of like, yeah, get ready. There's still another level to it as far as fans can bring. So that for me has been the difference, just seeing the city be able to explode. As Rob said, they've always loved the team. They just waited for this moment where they can explode and belt it out, and everything that's kind of been pent up for all these years came out in one game, and it's continued because the team has continued to earn their emotions. It brought back Ray to the fight-filled 6-5 overtime victory over the Ottawa Senators in 2007 that had 100 penalty minutes. They still talk about that, and they're going to talk about this game forever, said Ray, so it's cool to be part of it. Cool to see that they got it in them, and that down the road they're going to need it again at some point, and they're willing and able to do it. There are things that go on each night, and everybody gets excited about it, and you sit there and you think, they used to happen all the time, said Ray, but you've got a whole generation of people who never experienced anything like that, so it's all new to them. So for me, I do get excited about it, yeah, a little bit, but I'm not over the top. Ray conceded it is more fun being around a winning team. They're excited, they're happy, the way they should be and need to be, he said. I think with so much negativity around the team that wears on the guys and turn you in, you can't play the right way or the way you need to. I've experienced it before, so now they're having fun the way they're supposed to. Not just winning does that, but just being relaxed and playing the game the way they're supposed to. I was always of the belief that at some point this was going to turn the corner, Dunleavy said. Everyone's kind of found their stride together, and together is the big word. Dunleavy appreciates being in the middle of all the excitement in Jeanneret's old seat while remembering the late legend's message of needing to find a way to entertain the audience. He is on our minds all the time, said Dunleavy. Ray dropped his comic voice and turned sentimental when asked what Jeanneret would think about the end of the so-called Dunleavy drought. I know Nightstand gets really excited when he's doing his calls. You think sometimes, how would RJ have done it, said Ray. I think he would have been over the top and excited. It would have been nice for him to find Buffalo in the playoffs one more time again. It's unfortunate, but the great thing about Dan and I, a guy like RJ will always be a part of everything. It is almost like he was sitting up in the booth with Dan there every night doing his thing. I think he is watching and looking and has a big smile on his face.
Thank you, Larry. Gugino, peace activist injured by police at protest, dies at 81. Martin Gugino, a peace activist whose violent encounter with Buffalo police in 2020 was seen by millions around the world, died last month in Tampa, Florida, of natural causes. He was 81. 2 Buffalo police officers shoved Gugino in front of City Hall on June 4, 2020, following a protest over the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police. Then 75, Gugino suffered a fractured skull in the incident, a moment recorded by a reporter on cell phone video that went viral and was seen quickly across the globe. The moment that came amid the Black Lives Matter protests helped drive attention here to issues of policing. At the time, President Trump questioned on social media whether Gugino was an Antifa provocateur. I'm against fascism, Gugino told the Buffalo News in 2021, around the first anniversary of the incident. Gugino died March 9th, surrounded by close family. He is survived by 2 nieces, Dr. Megan Tuflexis and Dr. Andrea Duflexis Esch. A service celebrating Gugino's life is being planned for this summer in Buffalo. Born in Buffalo on October 15, 1944, Gugino graduated from Canisius High School and University at Buffalo. He also was a longtime member of the Catholic Worker Movement. The Buffalo native was passionate about several issues, including human rights, the closure of Guantanamo Bay, and addressing climate change, his family said. While what happened in 2020 propelled Gugino to prominence, his family described the event as one reflection of a lifelong commitment to justice and nonviolence. He worked as a computer technician in Cleveland. After retirement, he became involved with the Western New York Peace Center. Gugino always had an inquiring, open, and serious mind, said Vicki Ross, former executive director of the center. We're all very saddened, Ross said. He was so important to the Peace Center, to the peace movement. He was such an earnest, hard-working, dedicated person. He was through and through about making the world a better place. Gugino always wanted to have a principled approach and conversation about what is the right thing to do, she said. That's what he said he was doing that night in 2020 when he approached the dozens of officers in riot gear who were marching across Niagara Square. Gugino said he believed an 8 p.m. curfew instituted by then Mayor Byron Brown after nearly a week of protests was unconstitutional. The point was suppressing dissent, a peaceful protest, and you can't do that, Gugino said in 2021, so I went there to talk to the policeman. The two officers who pushed him, members of the Buffalo Police Department's emergency response team, were initially charged with assault, but later an Erie County grand jury chose not to indict them. Then Erie County District Attorney John Flynn said at the time he still believed a crime occurred, but Flynn was not sure if the officers were reckless or intended to cause Gugino harm. They shouldn't have pushed Gugino, he said. Flynn also said Gugino committed a crime and had no business approaching those police officers. Gugino's 2021 federal lawsuit against the city for alleged violations of his civil rights remains pending, according to court records. In recent years, Gugino had been studying Korean. In the last year of his life, he was involved with Sakatan, a nonprofit found in Kabul, Afghanistan in 2008, whose goal is to empower youth through skateboarding and education programs. Gugino, who was proud of where he was from, according to his family, supported civil liberties, racial justice, and environmental responsibility. He loved to learn and spend his life doing that, especially languages. Looking back on that night that thrust him into the global spotlight during his 2021 interview with the news, Gugino said he wouldn't do what he did the same way again. But he also believed his actions that night, after which he spent a month in a hospital, made a difference. It made a difference to me, he said. That counts. And a couple of kids wrote to me to say that it made a difference to them. That's all I want. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. State lawmakers passed second bill to extend budget. O'Mara on Senate Finance Committee hints at lack of urgency. Albany, state lawmakers passed a nearly $4 billion extender bill Tuesday to fund state operations through next week as Governor Kathy Hochul and legislative leaders remain at odds on a final budget agreement. The spending plan, due April 1st, is late for the seventh consecutive year, which includes all 5 years of Hochul's tenure. The Democratic governor, Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, Democrat Bronx, and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, Democrat Yonkers, disagree on policy issues such as how to address rising insurance costs, Hochul's proposed relaxation of the state's environmental review process, and how to address climate change goals. Both houses of the state legislature returned to the state capitol to pass the bill during what had been scheduled as a day off. The houses, which were initially expected to be on recess until April 20th, must return next week to pass another extender bill or finalize the budget. Senator Thomas O'Mara, Republican Big Flats, the top Republican on the Senate Finance Committee, asked Senate Deputy Majority Leader Michael Gianaris, Democrat Queens, to identify the major issues holding up the budget, whether joint conference sessions to discuss the budget were scheduled and if any budget bills could be locked down. Gianaris replied that it was not much different from the last extender we did, referring to the approximately $1 billion bill lawmakers passed on April 1st. O'Mara, whose district includes eastern Allegheny County, said he would not oppose the extender bill because of religious holidays, Passover from April 1st through April 9th. Easter was on Sunday. O'Mara, however, noted the continued pattern of late budgets and lack of answers for the public. The concern continues from this side of the aisle of the lack of any urgency to get this budget done, O'Mara said. We're now over a week late. New Yorkers really deserve to know what's going on with the state budget. Hochul proposed a $260 billion budget in January, which grew to nearly $263 billion when she amended it in February. In March, the Assembly and Senate both proposed one House budget resolutions. The Assembly's plan was $266 billion and the Senate's plan was $270 billion. The final budget will be clearly in excess of $260 billion, probably closer to $270 billion, O'Mara said. First-year Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan, who faces an April 15th deadline to submit his budget to the Common Council, is operating on Hochul's proposed aid of $206.3 million for the city in her budget. A City Hall spokesperson told the Buffalo News last week that amount included a $40 million increase that Hochul included in her February amendments. The Senate is proposing the same money for Buffalo, while the Assembly plan would add another $16.8 billion on top of the Hochul and Senate figure. On April 1st, Blake Washington, the state's budget director, told reporters that Hochul's proposed amount is probably safe to say should be preserved and just fine, adding, the amount that they go over, it's just a matter of how much resources are at the table and how it competes against school aid and any other manner of things. Not for closing on it, but we'll just see where we come out at the end of the day. Washington, in the same news briefing, expressed confidence Hochul and legislative leaders would reach agreement on a way to reduce auto insurance costs. Hochul has blamed insurance fraud and litigation for skyrocketing costs, the latter issue putting her at odds with the state's trial lawyer lobby. Hochul wants to cap the amount of non-economic damages that can be awarded to motorists who are uninsured, drive intoxicated, commit a felony, or leave the scene of felony incidents. Heastie, in turn, has raised concern that a driver could be 51% responsible for an auto incident and receive nothing based on the governor's proposal. Heastie has expressed concern over Hochul's plan to ease restrictions in the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, which the governor has said has led to delays, higher costs, and stonewalled housing from being constructed. And Hochul wants to set new deadlines for the state's 2019 climate law, which required New York to lower pollution-causing emissions by 40% by 2030. She plans to delay it to 2040 and change the state's mechanism of measuring emissions. On Monday, Hochul told reporters that she, Heastie, and Stuart Cousins speak all the time and that the leaders, in turn, take the discussions to their members. Those discussions have become more intense in recent weeks, the governor said. There is a lot of communication, a lot of give and take, a lot of conversations going on, which I think are really important to the process, she said.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:19. Today in history. On this date in 1820, the Venus de Milo statue, likely dating to the 2nd century BC, was discovered by a farmer on the Greek island of Milos. In 1864, the U.S. Senate passed, 38-6, the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, abolishing slavery. The House of Representatives passed it in January 1865. The amendment was ratified and adopted in December 1865. In 1911, an explosion at the Banner coal mine in Littleton, Alabama, claimed the lives of 128 men, most of them convicts, leased out from prisons. In 1913, the 17th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, providing for election of U.S. senators by state residents as opposed to state legislatures. In 1974, Hank Aaron of the Atlanta Braves hit his 715th career home run in a game against the Los Angeles Dodgers, breaking Babe Ruth's home run record that had stood since 1935. In 1990, Ryan White, the teenager whose battle with AIDS drew national attention and led to greater understanding and destigmatization of the disease, died in Indianapolis at age 18. And in 2010, President Barack Obama and Russian President Dmitry Medvedev signed the New START nuclear arms reduction treaty in Prague. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial, Media Under Attack. Nexstar Tegna merger will undermine local news choice in Western New York. A broadcast merger of this magnitude is nothing but bad news for media markets throughout the United States, including Buffalo's. It is beyond shameful that last Thursday the Federal Communications Commission approved the merger of television giants Nexstar Media Group and rival Tegna, and it's no wonder that 2 lawsuits trying to block the deal were announced the same day. This merger would create the largest television company in the U.S., comprising 265 television stations in 44 states and Washington. It would reach about 80% of U.S. households. The FCC waived its ownership rule that caps the number of TV stations one company can own in a single market. New York is one of 8 states suing to stop the merger, which could have grave local consequences, reducing media choice in this and countless other regions. DirecTV has also filed a suit. As a result, on Friday, the merger was temporarily paused by U.S. District Judge Troy Nunley. As reported by the News, Alan Pergament in Western New York, WIVB-TV Channel 4, owned by Nexstar, and WGR-TV Channel 2, already owned by Tegna, would become a single company owned duopoly, leading to a loss of competition with the probability of, as many fear, loss of jobs and lower salaries. Already, layoffs and departures at Channel 4 and Channel 2 have been linked, albeit through the rumor mill, to the controversial merger. Charlie Specht, a former news reporter and until recently an investigative reporter at Channel 2, is one of the departures, along with his colleague Sean Mickey, another investigative reporter. Pergament notes that Nexstar doesn't appear to make investigative reporting a top priority. That does not bode well for those major Buffalo outlets providing news gathering that goes beyond the surface. Neither reporter has, as of yet, been replaced. It takes a special kind of gullibility to believe that one entity owning both stations will lead to prompt staff replacements, much less additional hiring. There's also reason to fear censorship. Don't forget that last September, Nexstar, which owns dozens of ABC stations, continued to preempt the Jimmy Kimmel Show with other programming for an additional week following Disney's reaction to suspend the show for nearly a week, in response to the Trump administration's reaction to a remark Kimmel made about the death of Charlie Kirk. In announcing New York's lawsuit, Attorney General Letitia James' office described the merger as illegal, arguing it unlawfully limits competition. In her statement, James said this illegal merger threatens local news and could raise fees for consumers by combining hundreds of TV stations under the same owner. I'm suing to keep cable bills down and ensure New Yorkers can access the independent local news options they count on. There is a competing narrative. Nexstar claims that through this merger, the local broadcast TV stations it owns will be better able to compete with national outlets, giving local stations more heft in a multi-platform playing field. People who have worked in local broadcast news don't see it that way. Though current local news staffers could not go on the record, former Channel 2 anchor Kate Welshoffer told Pergament, "I don't think it's good for anyone, whether they work in news, watch the news, or simply care about the freedom of the press." Andy DeSantis, a retired Channel 2 chief photographer, agreed, "I don't think there's an upside to this merger except for Nexstar." And the former FCC senior staffer Gigi Sohn stated in an NPR segment, This is the prime example of the fix being in. I've never, in 35 years of doing this, I've never seen anything that even vaguely approaches what has gone on today. As usual, without being able to count on any checks or balances from the nation's legislative branch, we now look to the courts to insert some justice into this blatant takeover of independent media.
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one is written by Steve Breen of Creator Syndicate. And it shows Pam Bondi, the former U.S. Attorney General, being kicked out of the White House. There she's been given the boot. And it is titled Another Epstein Victim. And the second cartoon is by Steve Kelly, also of Creator Syndicate. And it shows an Ayatollah or an Iranian lying on the ground, and he's got papers in his hand, and standing on top of him is President Trump, and President Trump is looking down at him. And the Iranian said, "These are my demands." Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. We must think of our energy future. I write this in protest to the responses in the Buffalo News to my recent letter promoting environmental concerns. I generally just satisfy my frustration with comments, but lately I've sensed too many negative reactions to renewable energy, conservation, and environmental health, with predictably MAGA and right-wing attitudes and common language all echoing comfort regardless of consequence. Since Jimmy Carter mounted solar panels on the White House that Ronald Reagan took down, the nation has been split whether to develop energy in consideration of future generations, the future, or just continue to burn anything to get electricity. The invasion of Iran and Strait of Hormuz closing puts a new and much more strenuous weight on these matters. Had we listened to Carter and reduced dependency, Hormuz would now be just a name. But we didn't, and the president indicates capturing Iran's oil was one reason for the war. So we still are lazily dependent on the products of Saudi Arabia and the Russian oligarchs and American corporations rather than passive acres of solar panels and wind turbines. We must now lower our quality of life and learn to be less confident of the deep cornucopia and current administration has promised. Most of the religious in the world mark this as a time of sacrifice and sharing. Maybe it's time to stop kidding ourselves and admit trying to stay comfortable in a world that tatters may not help us prepare the world for our future and our children. This from Art Klein of Tonawanda.
Thank you, Larry. Trump is a dangerously erratic leader with no plan. We can agree that the number one job of the president is to keep us safe. In 2020, an illness was developing in China. It became what we now know as the COVID pandemic. That was in Trump's first term. At first, he pretended it wasn't serious and said it would be over by Easter. This was all wishful thinking. Looking to him for guidance, he gave us mixed messages. He suggested we use bleach and sunlight to kill the virus. He did get the vaccine out quickly, but refused to tell his followers to take it and or use masks. He got very ill and ended up hospitalized when he refused to take precautions. Today we are dealing with a crisis totally of his own making. He began a war with Iran after being counseled against it by the military. 2 weeks in, and the justifications continue to change. 20% of the world's LP gas and crude oil, as well as 30% of urea, come through the now closed Strait of Hormuz. He had no plan for this consequence. We are now facing an economic crisis. It's called stagflation. It is defined as high inflation, slow economic growth, and high unemployment. We experienced this during the 1970s following the OPEC oil embargo. Our deficit then was $50 billion. Today we are headed towards $40 trillion. We are in an extremely risky economic situation. What is Trump's strategy to deal with this? And it's written by Dennis Brady of Waverly. Laird?
Thank you, Linda. Bills need a new theme song for celebrations. As the Buffalo Bills usher in a new era with a brand new stadium, I think it's time to look at one of the traditions that has defined the fan experience for decades. The team theme song. While Mr. Brightside and Shout have served us well and brought us lots of joy and excitement over the years, those seasons never ended with the ultimate goal, the Super Bowl. A new song could symbolize a fresh start and hopefully propel our heroes to their first championship ever. This from Marty Farrell of West Seneca.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:30. Some opinion columns. Excuse me. This one is written by Leonard Green of the New York Daily News. Trump cannot select any more justices to the Supreme Court. The scariest thing I read this weekend was not about gas prices, although $4.29 a gallon for regular was nearly enough to make me do a Tiger Woods and flip my SUV. Too soon? And no, the scariest thing I read wasn't about the massive military bunker President Trump was designing under what used to be the East Wing of the White House. Did anybody really think he was only planning to build a ballroom? Even with the U.S. fighter jet being shot down in Iran and a 7-month-old baby being shot to death in her stroller in Brooklyn, the scariest thing I read this weekend was that Trump may get to name 2 more people to the U.S. Supreme Court. 2 more. According to the New York Times, a liberal advocacy group, Demand Justice, is gearing up for a judicial fight against Trump, who has already shaped the court with 3 conservative justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, he added during his first term in office. Even though there are no vacancies and none of the justices have announced any plans to retire, Demand Justice executives said they are convinced that Trump isn't done molding the court in his image. Democrats must treat the prospect of Trump filling more Supreme Court vacancies as the grave threat it is, Josh Orton, president of Demand Justice, said in a statement. The preemptive campaign is focusing on Justices Clarence Thomas, 77, and Samuel Alito, 76, who would each turn 80 under the next administration. Trump knows the court is about raw political power, power to protect himself, power to reward his billionaire allies, and power to enable ICE to intimidate and attack American citizens, Orton said. He is not going to leave office with his most loyal justices in their 80s and hope for the best. He's going to act and will be ready. Loyalty, it turns out, is only a relative concept. After the Supreme Court voted 6-3 in February to strike down his emergency tariffs on imports, Trump unleashed a social media rant criticizing the court, including 2 of the justices, Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, who ruled against him. The decision that matters most to me was tariffs. The court knew where I stood, how badly I wanted this victory for our country, and instead decided to potentially give away trillions of dollars to countries and companies who have been taking advantage of the United States for decades, Trump wrote. This president is never satisfied. He won a second term and still maintains he was cheated out of an election. He put 3 people in the Supreme Court, and now he wants to bully them. Last week, Trump made an unprecedented visit to the Supreme Court to hear in person arguments challenging his proposed restrictions on birthright citizenship. Although it didn't work, the visit was seen in many political circles as an intimidation tactic. The court was not impressed. Chief Justice John Roberts called the government's legal reasoning quirky. It's a new world, Roberts conceded, but it's the same Constitution. And it's the same Donald Trump. Voters, particularly women, should have learned their lessons when they elected him the first time, paving the way to a Trump-stacked court that overturned the right to an abortion. That is why elections matter, not just presidential elections, but midterms too. There's nothing to stop Thomas and Alito from stepping down before Trump's term ends to push the court even further to the right. But new appointees would require Senate confirmation, and that is where voters come in. That battle starts now, before it's too late. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is Another Voice, and it's on labor, and it is written by Michael Hogan, who is the business manager and secretary-treasurer of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades District Council Number 4. Immigration helps build states' workforce. After my parents' divorce, my mother moved her 3 sons into an affordable housing project outside Rochester. Our neighbors were hardworking people from all over the world, including many recent immigrants from Southeast Asia. Growing up in that diverse community taught my brothers and me a deep respect for all people. Later, moving to Buffalo and beginning an apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades only reinforced my belief in the power of community and solidarity. Our union is powered by the dedication of immigrant workers, our brothers, sisters, and neighbors. Yet, as federal immigration enforcement escalates, these hardworking individuals face the terrifying prospect of sudden deportation and family separation. This isn't just a humanitarian issue, it's a labor and economic crisis. That's why IUPAT, alongside a broad coalition of labor unions, proudly support the CARE, C-A-R-E, for Immigrant Families campaign. We urge Governor Kathy Hochul and the legislature to include an investment of $175 million for immigration legal services in the fiscal 2027 budget. We also demand the passage of the Access to Representation Act to establish a universal right to counsel and the BUILD, B-U-I-L-D Act to fortify our state's legal infrastructure. Currently, over 320,000 cases are pending in New York immigration courts, with more than 90,000 individuals navigating this system entirely unrepresented. Without counsel, breadwinners are ripped from their families. When immigrant workers lack legal protection, our entire workforce suffers. Unscrupulous employers use the threat of deportation to exploit vulnerable workers, degrading safety standards and driving down wages for everyone. Representation ensures a level playing field and keeps unions strong. Immigrant-led households wield an estimated $160.5 billion in spending power. Furthermore, New York City's comptroller found that providing universal legal representation would generate at least $8.4 billion in net economic benefits. Everyone deserves a fair day in court. By fully funding immigration legal services and passing the ARA and BUILD Acts, New York can protect its workforce, stabilize its economy, and uphold justice for all.
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Crayer hatches plan to build $32 million egg plant in Newstead. Crayer Family Farms plans to build a $32 million egg cleaning, packing, and shipping facility in the town of Newstead. The project would enable the family-owned business to separate its egg packing operations from production at its facility in Clarence to mitigate the potential impact of avian influenza. This strategic move will ensure continuity of operations even in the event of an outbreak, as the packaging plant will be able to operate independently and handle eggs from unaffected locations, according to a summary in Western New York Power Proceeds Allocation Board documents. Crayer produces more than 700 million eggs annually and supplies local and regional stores, including Wegmans, Eggland's Best, and Dash's Market, along with food distributors. By establishing a centralized egg processing facility capable of handling production from approximately 1.2 million hens, the project strengthens the resilience and efficiency of Western New York's food supply chain while reducing reliance on external processing facilities, Power Authority officials said. The proposed facility will allow eggs produced by regional farms to be cleaned, packed, and distributed within the region rather than relying on out-of-state processors, increasing the value of local agricultural production and supporting regional agricultural branding, the officials said. The project could receive $6.4 million in Western New York Power Proceeds funds from the New York Power Authority. The facility is designed to process eggs from about 1.2 million hens across multiple Crayer locations and contract growers, reducing reliance on out-of-state processing and strengthening the region's local supply food chain. Crayer would build the facility at 5005 North Millgrove Road, just south of Main Street, on 12 acres of a 122-acre parcel owned by the family. The remaining land will continue to be used for organic farming. The owners anticipate having 60 employees on site when the facility is operating, according to a letter submitted last fall by Fisher Associates, a design services firm, to the town board. Crayer estimates the project will create 5 jobs. At a town planning board meeting last summer, Crayer representatives described the egg cleaning as a 2-step process using chlorinated water and then ultraviolet lights. Crayer is aiming to start construction in June and finish the project in March 2027, according to Power Proceeds Allocation Board documents. The funding would be distributed after the project is completed. The Power Proceeds Allocation Board will review the request for $6.4 million in funds at its meeting on Tuesday. The Power Authority's Board of Trustees makes the final decision about funding recommendations. Power proceed funds come from the sale of unused hydropower generated at the Niagara Power Project in Lewiston. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Measures fail to halt rising cost of oil, gas. Global leaders have been scrambling to contain the rising cost of oil and gasoline since the start of the Iran war, which took a record amount of oil off the market when tankers full of crude were stranded in the Persian Gulf and military strikes damaged refineries, pipelines, and export terminals. Hoping to ease some pain for consumers, President Trump and other heads of state have been pulling on various levers, launching more oil on the market in a bid to calm the chaos. A group of 32 nations that are members of the International Energy Agency began releasing the largest volume of emergency oil reserves in its history, 400 million barrels. Trump is tapping into oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve while lifting sanctions on Russian and Iranian crude and temporarily waiving the Jones Act, a maritime law that requires ships carrying goods between U.S. ports to be U.S. flagged. But despite those maneuvers, crude oil has soared well past $100 a barrel, and gasoline is selling for $4.14 a gallon on average in the U.S. While the stopgaps are helping, they're not adding up to enough oil price replacement what's stranded, experts say. They're all incremental, said Mark Berteau, professor of chemical engineering and chemistry at Texas A&M University. You're talking about these different patches being at the level of maybe 1 to 2 million barrels a day and you've got to get to 20. So it's hard to see that actually adding up the numbers that are needed. And then the question is, how long can you sustain those? Before the war began, roughly 15 million barrels of crude oil and 5 million barrels of oil products passed daily through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf, amounting to about 20% of global oil consumption, according to the International Energy Association. In addition to that loss, some oil-producing nations in the Middle East have halted oil production because they can't ship fuel out of the Gulf and their storage tanks are full. That's taken about 10 million barrels per day off the market, the IEA said. Then there are 8 countries around the Persian Gulf that together hold about 50% of global oil reserves. Under normal circumstances, they coordinate closely to raise or lower their output to keep prices steady, said Jim Crane, Energy Research Fellow at Rice University's Baker Institute. Usually, Saudi Arabia steps in to bring spare oil to market and calm things down, he said. But all that spare capacity is also bottled up inside the Persian Gulf right now, and it can't get to market either, Crane said. So the main emergency response system that we have is also blocked. The IEA said in its recent report that the resumption of transit through the Strait of Hormuz is the single most important action to return the stable oil and gas flows and reduce the strains on markets and prices.
Thank you, Larry. RCR Yachts plans storage expansion. A yacht broker and marina operator is expanding its operation at the Buffalo Outer Harbor. Youngstown-based RCR Yachts wants to construct a 3,240 square foot addition to a 4,300 square foot storage building that it put up 5 years ago at its 156 slip Buffalo Marina at 284 Furman Boulevard, while building another 9,748 square foot building about 20 feet to the south. That would give the business more room for boat storage. The 8.2-acre private marina sits alongside the City Ship Canal, just south of the dead-end spur of Michigan Avenue on the far side of the General Mills plant. The project received a coastal consistency determination Monday from the City Planning Board, but needs zoning variances before it comes back for final approval. The Planning Board also approved a negative declaration of environmental impact for Beacon Communities' proposed $56 million affordable housing project at 375 Michigan Avenue, where the Boston-based developer is working with First Shiloh Baptist Church to put up a 157-unit building at the corner of Michigan and East Eagle Street. Plans call for an L-shaped building hugging the corner with a 5-story wing along Michigan and 4 stories along East Eagle. The all-residential 93,472 square foot building will contain 107 one-bedroom units, 37 two-bedroom apartments, and 13 three-bedrooms apartments, ranging from 722 to 1,193 square feet in size. All will be priced to be affordable for households earning no more than 50% or 60% of area median income. The project is next to First Shiloh's Ellicott Town Center apartments that Beacon and First Shiloh previously renovated, and across the street from the Compass East Commercial Complex and the historic Durham Memorial AME Church, which required a special stipulation from the State Historic Preservation Office that the project would not affect the AME Church. The project, which is just under 60 feet in height, exceeds the maximum height allowed by the Green Code, so a zoning variance is required before it comes back for site plan approval. Officials hope to start construction in 2027 after obtaining 4% low-income housing tax credits and other state financing by the end of this year. Everyone we've talked to seems to be on board with our request and the size and scope of this, and I think it's going to be a good contribution to the neighborhood, said Brian Samara, Senior Development Director for Beacon. It's in context. It's not a terribly large building, and it's not uncommon across the street to see buildings that are taller. We're confident we'll address any concerns. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Business Briefly, Ford recalls 420,000 vehicles. Ford Motor Company is recalling more than 400,000 vehicles because the windshield wiper arms can break, causing reduced visibility and increasing the risk of a crash. The recall covers over 422,613 vehicles, including 2021 to 23 Ford Expeditions and Lincoln Navigators, and a range of F-Series Super Duty trucks, model years 2022 to 2023. And activist investor makes bid for Universal Music Group. Activist investor Bill Ackman's Pershing Square Capital Management is offering to purchase Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny's music label, Universal Music Group, in a cash and stock transition valued at approximately $64 billion.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Baker William, Braun Leota D, Butler Gail, Domino Jerome P, and Hipple Dolores. France Lawrence Werner, Ph.D. Fretz Ralph N. Johnson Lisa. Johnson Bertrell. Clinic Karen. Knott Leslie G. C. Kozdrisky Paul A. Krupp Susan R. Nazais. Mensare Yusuf. McGowan Donald. Nantka Wilma A. Nichols Gladys E. Nowak Martha M. O'Neill Dolores Templin. Phipps Connie. Trail Judith. Wilson Sarah J. Nero Sally. Zangi Giuseppe Joseph, and Zepker Walter F. If you need further information on any of these names, please give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, April 8, 2026. You are an empathetic and compassionate humanitarian. You are also strong-willed and active. Simplicity is the key to life this year. It's time to create solid foundations internally and externally. Aries, 2 stars. This is a tricky day. In one way, you're strong and powerful because the Sun and Saturn are in your sign. Plus, your ruler, Mars, is stimulated by unpredictable Uranus. Tonight, you're noticed. Taurus, 3 stars. News in the media might be depressing today. Likewise, issues relating to travel, publishing, medicine, or the law might disappoint you. Tonight, explore. Gemini, 3 stars. Think before you speak today when talking with friends or dealing with groups or organizations, because you might impulsively say or do something that you regret later. Tonight, check your finances. Cancer. Although you make an excellent impression on others, dealing with partners, spouses, and close friends might be strained today. You might feel criticized or diminished. Tonight, listen to someone. Leo, 2 stars. Issues relating to publishing, the media, law, or medicine might be disputed today, especially if they relate to your job. Dealing with different cultures or different countries might make difficulties. Tonight, work. Virgo, 2 stars. Your dealings with partners, spouses, and close friends might be challenged today. They might attack you about an issue or vice versa. They might suddenly feel that you're on their case. Tonight, relax. Libra, 2 stars. Family discussions are confusing today. You might have a vague, dreamy approach to something. You might have a fleeting depression or feel that nobody loves you. Tonight, Cocoon, Scorpio, 2 stars. You're in work mode, but if someone criticizes you today, or if they're uncooperative, or they suggest things that are unrealistic, this will discourage you. Tonight, share ideas. Sagittarius, you're in a playful social mood. Unfortunately, someone might rain on your parade, which is a bummer. Tonight, manage your possessions. Capricorn, 2 stars. Today, the moon is in your sign, giving you a slight advantage over the other signs. Don't be upset if you feel cut off from someone today. You might feel lonely or ignored. Tonight, you win. Aquarius, 2 stars. You might find money or you might lose money. Keep an eye on your possessions to avoid loss, theft, or damage. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Pisces, 3 stars. Because you might be alarmed or disappointed by comments from a friend or a member of a group, you might impulsively do something that you regret later. Tonight, be friendly.
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Dear Heloise, I wanted to drop you a line to let you know I received a copy of your book, In the Kitchen with Heloise, and my bridal shower, and I've tried some of your ideas for cooking. You mentioned using beer as a substitute for wine in stews to get a delicious, rich sauce. I tried it, and wow, it was out of this world. Everyone loved it, and I was asked what made my beef stew so good. I said Heloise gave me the recipe. Many thanks for all the creative ideas in your books and column. This is from Georgia. Medical appointment preparation. Dear Heloise, to make your doctor's appointment more effective, gather the necessary information about your medical condition beforehand. When did it start? What are the symptoms? Do you have a fever? This information may help your doctor's diagnosis. After my visit, I document the name of the attending physician or physician's assistant, as well as the names and dosages of medications that were prescribed. By recording this information, I become more aware of any recurrences and medications that do or do not eliminate my symptoms. Creating a spreadsheet with this information has been extremely helpful. At each appointment, because I am asked about my current medications and supplements, I created a document listing this information, including the dosage. It's easy to update and print for my appointment. And that's from Karen. Removing candle wax. Dear Heloise, I appreciated Peyton's tip about how to get leftover wax out of a candle by freezing a jar. I got mine out by using a knife or sharp object to break up the wax until the pieces fell out. Then I put the pieces in small organza bags to make sachets to put in drawers or on shelves in a linen closet. That's from Andy L. And Angel Biscuits. Dear Heloise, My sister and her husband are planning a visit very soon, and she had only one request, which was for some of your angel biscuits. She is battling cancer, and I'll make her anything she wants. However, I've misplaced the recipe, so will you please reprint it from your column? I read hints from Heloise every day in my local newspaper. If you print this in the paper, I can cut it out and save it. From Stephanie. Stephanie, of course I'll reprint this popular recipe. And folks, I will read it to you. And don't forget, if you want anything repeated, call us at the station 716-821-5555 and ask Nick if he would repeat the recipe on page 08. Okay, so here's the angel biscuits ingredients. 1 package dry yeast, 1/4 cup warm water, 2½ cups flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/8 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup shortening, 1 cup buttermilk. Directions: preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Grease a baking sheet. Let the yeast dissolve in warm water and set aside. Mix all the dry ingredients together as listed. Cut the shortening into the dry mixture until it resembles a coarse meal. Stir in the buttermilk and yeast mixture. Thoroughly blend the mixture. The dough can be refrigerated or kneaded lightly. And in parentheses, after removing the dough from the refrigerator, it should be allowed to rest at room temperature to allow it to rise. Roll the dough out on a floured board. Cut out the biscuits with a biscuit cutter. Place the biscuits in a prepared pan and allow the dough to rise a little before baking. Bake them for 12 to 15 minutes, and that's from Heloise. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Digest, Russia, China reject resolution on Hormuz. United Nations, Russia and China vetoed a UN Security Council resolution Tuesday aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz that had been repeatedly watered down in hopes those two countries would abstain. The vote, 11-2, with 2 abstentions from Pakistan and Colombia, took place shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump issued an unprecedented threat that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran does not open the strategic waterway and make a deal. But late Tuesday, Trump pulled back his threat. Trump said he would suspend the threatened attack for 2 weeks provided Iran agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the world's oil typically passes through the strait. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 8th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beanon
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beanell.
On to some local and regional news. I've got two shorts. Peoples-Stokes won't seek re-election to the Assembly. Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, a Buffalo Democrat and one of the most powerful lawmakers in the state, will not seek re-election. Peoples-Stokes, who has served in the Assembly since January 2003 and served as Majority Leader since 2018, will discuss her future at a news conference Wednesday afternoon at 120 Broadway at the corner of Elm Street, the location of a former Dunn Tire store. The news of Peoples-Stokes plans not to seek re-election was first reported by Politico. Peoples-Stokes, 74, a Buffalo native, grew up the child of a school teacher and sanitation worker who graduated from city public schools before earning her bachelor's degree in elementary education and master's degree in student personnel administration from Buffalo State University. She worked as a teacher and at the Buffalo Urban League and Citizens Action of New York before entering politics. Peoples-Stokes served in the Erie County Legislature from 1993 to 2002 and was Majority Leader in 1998. She was a member of Grassroots, the black political organization that came to power in Buffalo in the 1990s and included high-profile politicians such as Byron Brown, the city's longest-serving mayor. Peoples-Stokes later challenged her predecessor, Assemblymember Arthur Eve, before being elected in 2002. And AG releases footage of pedestrian fatality. The State Attorney General's office on Tuesday released two videos showing an 82-year-old pedestrian struck in January while walking across Elmwood Avenue. The vehicle that hit the pedestrian was driven by an off-duty Erie County Sheriff's Jail deputy. The pedestrian, Carl Sloan, died at the Erie County Medical Center early on January 10th, the Attorney General's office said. He was hit about 3:15 p.m. January 9th on Elmwood, just south of Allen Street. The Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation is investigating the case, as it does with any incident in which a person's death may have been caused by a police officer or a peace officer. The name of the deputy has been withheld. The deputy remained at the scene and cooperated with investigators, Buffalo Police previously said. The videos show a pickup making a left turn out of a parking lot and striking Sloan, who was on or near the double yellow lines in the middle of the street when he was hit. The first video, a roughly 14-second clip, has no sound. The second video, a roughly 13-second clip, has audio. The sound of Sloan hitting the pavement is audible in the second video. The Attorney General's office said the release of the video is not an expression of any opinion about guilt or innocence of any party in a criminal matter or whether a person may be charged with a crime. The pickup driven by the off-duty deputy was his personal vehicle, the sheriff's office previously said. The footage was released as an effort to increase transparency and public trust, the Attorney General's office said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Bank of America plans to close Elma facility, affecting 170 jobs. Bank of America will close an operations center in Elma this summer as the bank lease expires in a move that affects 170 of the 252 jobs there. The bank has operated a center at 611 Jamison Road since 2019, when it relocated operations there from West Seneca. In a notice filed with the State Department of Labor, Bank of America said the center has 252 employees and will close on June 24th. The notice said 172 of those employees will be impacted by the shutdown. Bank of America said employees of the Elma location are being given the opportunity to remain within the bank in other jobs, but did not specify how many of those openings are available and whether they are local versus out of town. Affected employees who accept internal transfer opportunities prior to their separation date will not be separated as a result of this action, the bank said. Bank of America said employees can also choose to receive a severance package. The shutdown would be a significant downsizing of Bank of America's presence in the Buffalo-Niagara region. The FDIC said Bank of America, as of mid-2025, had 16 branches in the Buffalo area, down from 21 locations 5 years earlier. Downtown, the Bank of America building at Fountain Plaza is preparing for a $50 million transformation by Seminole Real Estate Corp. that will convert most of it to its apartments. Bank of America is a tenant. Plans call for the bank to consolidate to the 20,000 square foot ninth floor, which it already occupies. A fact sheet on Bank of America's website said the bank employs 550 people in the Buffalo Niagara region, including at its branches. Bank of America ranked fourth in deposit market share locally at 4.97%, according to the most recent figures published by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp. In 2025, that was up slightly from 4.8% 5 years earlier when Bank of America was also number 4. Bank of America said the Buffalo Niagara region is an important market and we will continue to invest in the region. The bank said in the past 10 years it has invested $26 million in its footprint in the market, with plans to invest an additional $4 million in its financial center network over the next couple of years. Bank of America said it has spent over $4 million in philanthropic grants, sponsorships, and employee matching gifts in the area since 2020. Brian Moynihan, CEO of North Carolina-based Bank of America, said in January he expected the bank's headcount to drop this year, partly due to the bank's use of AI. If you look at the expense load, it comes from people and it comes from the benefits and the compensation. And it only comes from the buildings and computer systems to allow them to do the great job for clients, Moynihan told investors on a conference call. So that's what we're working on. Moog Incorporated, which is headquartered near the Jameson Road site, bought the professional office complex in 2023. Bank of America has remained as a tenant. Moog last year unveiled a manufacturing facility dedicated to space actuation and avionics in another part of the Jameson Road complex. Once the Bank of America office area becomes available, we plan to evaluate opportunities to expand our manufacturing capabilities in support of our growing book of business, said Aaron Astrachan, a Moog spokesman. Moog acquired the complex for $28 million from an entity controlled by Peter G. Wilson, owner of Sonrel Distribution Center.
Thank you, Larry. New survey seeks opinions on how to improve Erie County. A year after he first announced it, County Executive Mark Poloncarz is rolling out a comprehensive Envision Erie survey to collect input from all interested residents. Poloncarz first announced his Envision Erie survey campaign during his April 2025 State of the County address and said the surveys would be out by summer. Although delayed, the new survey and website is now active with some additional protections to prevent fake survey responses from bots, he said. If it all goes well, the survey responses may help inform budget priorities for the next year. Surveys launched this week online and will be issued in paper form at various community locations, Poloncarz said. County responses to community needs may vary based on survey responses the administration gets from different parts of the county. If one part of the county raises a different set of concerns than another, then county solutions may be created that are tailored to geographic regions instead of being applied countrywide, he said. The survey will be open for 90 days until July 6th. It can be accessed online at erie.gov/envisionerie. In addition, county staffers will also be collecting answers from residents at community centers and senior centers with paper forms distributed at various locations. Survey topics cover everything from housing and safety to health, business development, quality of life, economic development, and infrastructure. As we formulated it, we realized the survey got a little longer, Poloncarz said Tuesday. It was asking more detailed questions because we didn't want to be just this generalization where it's nice to have these responses, but they're not really helping us answer the question. Do they feel they're getting good value for our county? Are there ways we can do it better? The survey includes 23 questions, which includes some demographic data questions and offers some opportunities to write in your own answer. Most questions cannot be skipped. At the survey's conclusion, Erie County will analyze survey responses and community input throughout the summer, identify key trends and priorities expressed by residents, develop and release a public-facing action plan in fall 2026 outlining how Erie County will respond to identified community needs and priorities. The survey findings will be released after all the results have been collected and analyzed, he said. The idea for the survey came from Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, home to Pittsburgh. From November 2023 to April 2024, the Allegheny County government issued a survey to residents as part of County Executive Sarah Inamorato's All in Allegheny campaign, described as the largest, most diverse, and most inclusive community engagement initiative this county has ever seen. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Crypto mining firm faces suit over noise. Residents in North Tonawanda have filed a lawsuit against cryptocurrency mining company DigiPower X for its pervasive, inescapable, and unbearable noise, according to court documents. The class action lawsuit was filed on Monday in federal court in Buffalo. 3 residents, Sharon Demers, Karen Hentz, and Mark Polito, signed on as plaintiffs, although the suit covers everyone living within 3 miles of DigiPower in North Tonawanda. The residents are represented by Emma Dietz and Robin Greenwald from the New York City law firm White and Luxembourg. The lawsuit claims DigiPower acted with negligence and has caused a nuisance in the community due to its ongoing operations. Representatives from DigiPower did not respond to an emailed request for comment from the news. The cryptocurrency mining facility began operating in 2021 after it acquired the gas power plant Fortistar off Erie Avenue. It uses large computers to conduct calculations to possibly earn users cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin. Those large computers produce heat as they work. To cool down the computers, DigiPower installed massive fans, according to the lawsuit. These fans produce a loud, droning, and persistent noise, including low-frequency sound that manifests like vibrations that can be heard and felt throughout plaintiff's properties, the lawsuit said. The noise from the fans has caused the residents to suffer health effects including fatigue, anxiety, increased stress, insomnia, mental anguish, and exacerbated migraines, according to the lawsuit. Health and acoustics experts interviewed by the Buffalo News in July 2024 said noise coming from the DigiPower facility likely triggers residents' fight or flight response. That kind of stimulation can lead to several short and long-term health effects, including anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, inability to regulate one's immune response, cardiovascular-related mortality, hypertension, and strokes, the experts said. My family and I are under attack, Polito said in the lawsuit. We have been denied the peace and tranquility and comfort of life in our own homes. Most people retreat to the comfort of their homes to shut the world out. DigiPower has invaded our homes, the one and only safe haven we call home to enjoy the pleasures of life. Despite the company building tall walls around the facility, the noise has continued, the lawsuit alleged. Additionally, after reporting by the news in July 2024 that revealed the possible health consequences of the consistent noise, the city of North Tonawanda hired an independent acoustics expert to analyze the facility's noise, train police how to use acoustics equipment, and help update the city's noise ordinance. The city then found DigiPower had been violating its noise ordinance and issued fines and citations to the company. DigiPower has since been arguing against those citations in city court. The class action lawsuit brings 4 claims against DigiPower: private nuisance, public nuisance, negligence, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. The residents in the lawsuit are asking for the judge to issue a decision to stop DigiPower from operating, at least temporarily, to prevent further harm to their health. They are also asking for monetary compensation to cover the costs of the lawsuit. Part of this monetary compensation includes a request for DigiPower to disgorge the money it earned while operating and causing the nuisances alleged in the lawsuit. Residents want DigiPower to return the alleged ill-gotten profits, according to the lawsuit. The residents also want the creation of a medical monitoring fund sufficient to cover past and future medical expenses necessary to monitor for disease and illness that could have occurred from DigiPower's operations, according to the lawsuit.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:15. On to sports. The Bills. Coleman may be the biggest X factor for the Bills, is written by Jay Skursky. The Buffalo Bills continue to say all the right things about Keon Coleman. He's training, he's working hard, he's doing what's expected of him. He's going to be a big part of the offense during the 2026 season. My sense and feeling is that he's dialed in and ready to prove his worth like he did last year, President of Football Operations and General Manager Brandon Beane told the Buffalo News last month. I don't think there's any concern. He's dialed in and ready to be a Bill. We're excited to get him back. Of course, that's what you'd expect Beane to say. Anything less would reduce any trade value Cole has left, minimal as it may be at this point. It's hard to shake the feeling the Bills are saying what they have to regarding Coleman. During an exclusive interview with the Buffalo News, Beane revealed that teams have checked in with the Bills both before and after the NFL scouting combine about Coleman's potential availability in a trade. But my gut is that people are checking in. Are you just ready to give him away? No, we believe in Keon, Beane said. My job would be to listen on anyone other than Josh Allen, but Keon, full expectation is Keon will be there as part of this thing, and we're excited to see what he looks like April 7th when we see him back in the building. The plan is for him to be back here and be part of this thing, whether it's a starter or backup. Whatever that is, he knows he has to come in and earn it. For now, let's take Beane at his word. If the Bills really are committed to him being on the team in September, he's very likely the X factor for not just the offense, but also how Beane approaches the draft later this month. If the Bills were just posturing and would really like to move Coleman, the time to do it would be before the draft starts. Speaking at NFL's annual meeting last week, Beane said he would be open to drafting a wide receiver in the first round. As it stands, it's hard to imagine. The Bills made a big commitment, both financially and in terms of draft capital, when they swapped a second-round pick for wide receiver DJ Moore and a fifth-round pick from the Chicago Bears. Beane made a sizable investment in free agency last year for Joshua Palmer, who will look to put an injury-plagued first season in Buffalo behind him and has a contract that basically necessitates a spot on the roster. Khalil Shakir is firmly entrenched as his team's slot receiver, likely the number 2 or 3 option on the offense depending on how you rank Moore and tight end Dalton Kincaid. If Coleman is back, he's probably number 4 on the receiver depth chart to start the season if everyone is healthy, with recently signed Trent Sherfield as number 5. Drafting a wide receiver in the first round with Coleman on the roster feels unlikely, especially given the needs on defense in the front 7. If the Bills pass on a receiver in the first round and maintain their current draft picks, the earliest the team could add another wideout would be in the 3rd round. Expecting a player drafted there to an immediate contributor feels like a reach. Now, if the Bills were to trade Coleman, that's different. A first-round receiver would likely bump Palmer to 4th on the depth chart. He'd be overpaid in that role, but would have the versatility to back up the top 3 spots. A big question Beane has to answer leading to the draft is this: has he done enough at receiver to help Allen? Moore is a good start, but does more need to be done? If he decides it does, then he has to decide if Coleman's development is part of the equation or another move has to be made, like actually taking a receiver in the first round. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. With their mojo back, Sabres also send a message to Bolts. The Buffalo Sabres recaptured their game Monday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning when they absolutely had to find it. The task will be to do it again Wednesday night in Madison Square Garden against the New York Rangers and Thursday against Columbus. You get the picture. Being ready for the playoffs means you hope to stay healthy and you hope to go in playing consistent hockey. You don't want to suddenly be searching for a style you may have lost in the first couple of weeks of April. While the Sabres' spotty showings in Ottawa and Washington were downright alarming to the fan base, even as the long-awaited playoff berth was clinched. The losses clearly served as a wake-up call in the dressing room. Some details had slipped, especially in the defensive zone, but the Sabres were much tighter in that area in Monday's 4-2 victory over the Lightning, and it was a game that saw Tampa Bay not even get to 20 shots on goal until nearly 52 minutes had elapsed. In evaluating his team's performance, Sabres coach Lindy Ruff offered a simple analysis. Looked like the team that had been playing all year. Okay, maybe the team that has been playing since December, but you get the point. The Sabres forechecked ferociously, were moving their feet through the neutral zone, especially Alex Tuch, and were the first to pucks all over the ice. Their breakout passes were crisp, and their goaltending was on point as Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen improved to 10-2-1 in his last 13 decisions and got to 20 wins for the third straight season. The Sabres started the week just 2-3-2 in their last 7 games. They got a big break when Montreal was upset at home by New Jersey to end an 8-game winning streak and kept the Habs from passing Buffalo. Then they got their own win again to pull even with Tampa Bay for the Atlantic Division, giving the Lightning lots to ponder on their flight to Ottawa for Tuesday's game with the Senators. "We've been on such a good run there," said defenseman Bowen Byram. "Not making excuses for ourselves, but it's bound to come to an end at some point. Hopefully that's behind us and we can stack a few more wins together before the end here." The game, frankly, meant a lot more to the Sabres than it did to the Lightning. The pregame chant of Tampa Bay coach John Cooper was all about tamping down the hype in the wake of the 8-7 slugfest the teams played here last month. Meanwhile, it was definitely a food-for-thought game for the Sabres. For the first time since the Atlantic Division was formed in 2013, they have 3 straight home wins over the Lightning, as well as a season series victory without a regulation loss, 3-0-1. Until Monday's win, Buffalo had not won 3 in a row at home against Tampa Bay since a stretch from December 10, 2008 to March 27, 2010. Still, the Bolts aren't overly concerned about where they finish in the standings. It feels a lot like how the Florida Panthers were talking at the end of last season. They didn't care a bit about where they landed, and their Game 7 win in Toronto proved it wasn't that big a deal to not be at home. The Sabres, of course, have quite a different point of view. When you haven't been in the playoffs in 15 years, you want every security blanket you can wear. Starting a series at home could serve to provide that added warmth. And frankly, after all the Sabres have done in these 50 games, it would be a real bummer to finish third in the Atlantic and have to open on the road. The Sabres are 25-10-4 at home with 2 games left. Last time they had 25 wins downtown was 25-10-6 mark in 2009-10, the last division championship season. The fans were pumped. The Beer Sabres were even back for a night at the concession stand. The crowd roared pre-game when the playoff clinch graphic featuring all the players appeared on the Jumbotron. They kept the intensity up during the game and roared again when the goal horns celebrated the victory. "They're all in," Tuch said. "They've got our backs and they're excited. They deserve this." Ruff loved the energy in the building. Got some chuckles over fans taking a few shots at a Brandon Hagel dummy on their way into the building. The Tampa Bay forward, who got fined by the NHL for mugging Rasmus Dahlin during the last meeting, missed his 3rd straight game due to injury. "Everybody's into it. I just think that's part of it," Ruff said. "I think our fans have been waiting for this for a while." You couldn't expect a repeat of the 8-7 barn burner the teams played here March 8th, but there was some reason to wonder if the pugilism and downright ornery behavior might reappear. "It would be really hard to replicate that last one," Cooper said. Cooper was right. April 6th was not March 8th. Nothing probably will ever be like that night again. One thing was the same, though. The Sabres won. The Lightning have a certain air of bravado about them, born from the experience of 4 trips to the Stanley Cup Final and 2 titles from 2015-2022. But they've lost in the first round 3 straight years and didn't beat the Sabres once in regulation this season. Sometimes all that showy swagger is a means of masking your doubt.
Thank you, Larry. So, 2 short articles. Stars banned. The Dallas Stars have banned a person from attending games at the American Airlines Center after they bought tickets for a group of spectators seen celebrating a goal with a Nazi salute. Any type of discriminatory or hateful behavior will not be tolerated and has no place in our arena, the team said Monday in a statement. Stars fan Courtney Ripley told WFAA TV in Dallas that she took a 12-second video at a game against Toronto in late December. It showed 4 fans reacting to a goal by appearing to raise and extend their right arms with the straightened right hand facing downward. The team conducted an investigation and identified the individual who bought the tickets, who was informed of the indefinite ban. Fan codes of conduct are prominent throughout the NHL. Every team has a scripted segment that is shared on their video boards through their public address system or both, telling fans about their respective codes of conduct. And the other short is Kaepernick Memoir will be released in the fall. He has not played since taking a knee in protest in 2016. A decade after he first took a knee during the national anthem, Colin Kaepernick will be publishing his life story. The activist and former San Francisco 49ers quarterback has completed the perilous fight to come out September 15th through the Hatchet Book Group imprint Legacy Lit. His memoir will come out almost exactly 10 years after he knelt before a preseason game, a protest against police violence and racial inequality that was emulated by some players and criticized by politicians, team owners, and fans, some of who booed him and burned his jersey. Kaepernick, who has not played in the NFL since 2016, said in a statement he wanted to offer context for what led to his taking a knee. Before that, he had remained seated during the anthem. People saw the moment, but they didn't see the years that made it possible. The questions about who I was, the injustices I could no longer ignore, the voices of those who came before me that I carried into that stadium, Kaepernick said in a statement released Tuesday. That journey from a black kid navigating an identity the world didn't always make space for, to an athlete who realized the game was bigger than football, shaped everything. When I took a knee, it wasn't a sudden act. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Michigan is back atop the college hoops world. Wolverines get past UConn for first title since Fab 5 era. Indianapolis, Michigan's new Fab 5 threw style points out the door and brought home a prize not even the school's most famous team could capture. The 5 fabulous transfers who make up Coach Dusty May's starting lineup got down and dirty with the rest of the Wolverines, coming out with the national title trophy Monday night after muscling their way to a 69-63 victory over stingy, stubborn UConn. Michigan only made 2 3-pointers all night. The Final Four's most outstanding player, Elliot Cadeau, led the Wolverines with 19 points, including the team's first 3, which came 7:03 into the second half. The second 3 from freshman Trey McKinney came with 1:50 left and gave a dagger feeling, giving May's team, which scored 90 points in 5 straight March Madness games leading to the final, a 9-point lead. To no one's surprise, UConn fought to the finish. Solo Ball banked in a 3 to cut the deficit to 4 with 37 seconds left, and after 2 missed free throws, UConn's Alex Caravan, 17 points, barely grazed the rim on a 3 that would have cut the deficit to 1 with 17 seconds left. Not until McKinney sank 2 free throws to bring Michigan's shooting from the line to 25 for 28 for the night could the Wolverines, 37-3, kick off the celebration for the program's second title, the other coming in 1989, a few years before the Fab 5 arrived and made 2 trips to the championship game but never won a title. Hail to victors, Jalen Rose, one of the Fab 5 stars, posted on social media. National champions. It was the first men's hoops title for the Big Ten since Michigan State in 2000, including UCLA's win in the women's NCAA tournament Sunday. The conference swept the football, Indiana, and basketball titles this year. Michigan won this one with defense, holding UConn to 30.9 shooting. the fourth straight game the Wolverines held their opponent to a season-low field goal percentage. These guys have done it all this year, May said. When one side of the ball has let us down, the other side has picked it up. Our togetherness defensively ultimately got us over the hump. Michigan had to fight for everything. The Wolverines missed their first 11 shots from 3, finished 2 for 15 beyond the arc, and won despite the struggles of their best player, Axel Lindeborg, ailing with a hurt knee and foot that kept him from elevating. The graduate transfer from UAB finished with 13 points and 4 of 13 shooting. If you told me we would shoot it this poorly and be dominated on the glass and still find a way to win, I don't know if I would have believed you, May said. The team just found a way all season. The 2 3-pointers were tied for second fewest by a winning team in the title game, according to Sport Radar. Michigan also got out-rebounded 22-12 on the offensive glass by a UConn team that would not go away. How are you disappointed at all in your group? UConn coach Dan Hurley said, these guys have 22 offensive rebounds versus that group of monsters out there. So proud of the guys. Truth be told, it wasn't anyone's prettiest night. UConn's hopes of becoming the first team since John Wooden's UCLA dynasty to win 3 titles in 4 seasons came up short, done in by massive foul trouble and its own terrible shooting. Hurley's team missed its first 11 shots from 3 in the second half. Braylon Mullins, the hero of the Duke win that put UConn in the Final Four, finished 4 of 17, though he made a pair of late threes that kept the game within reach. Travis Reed Jr., the transfer from Michigan, finished with 13 points and 14 rebounds, but never took control. UConn, 34-6, covered the 6.5-point spread, and Hurley kept his players out on the court to watch the podium get set up for the victors. About the only consolation, the Huggies clocked things up, slowed things down, and made Michigan beat them at the game. It's complicated because everyone's crushed, Hurley said. We came here to be out there, doing what those guys are doing now. Nobody did it quite like the Wolverines this year. They came into the title game shooting freely and winning big. In each of their 5 tournament games, they broke 90 and won by 13 or more.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:32. On to Asking Eric. Sister has very strong opinions about school choice. Dear Eric, my sister can't get the fact that we're sending our kids to a local public school instead of to the charter school where she sends her kids to. We normally have a good relationship, but this has really become a sticking point for her. It feels like I need to defend public schools every time I see or talk to her, which is nuts. It's starting to feel political. I'm not a political person. I don't talk about it. I don't think she is either. But this one thing is something she can't move on from. I don't know what her deal is. Her kids are a few years older than mine, and so she gave me and my wife hand-me-downs, and this has been really helpful in a lot of ways. Is it just that we don't take her advice about this one thing? What can I say to make her stop bringing it up? I want to be open to the idea that I'm wrong, but I can't keep second-guessing myself. Our kids are happy. I like their school. I actually don't really like the school my sister sends her kids to. I would never say that, but I feel like I'm getting close. From Classroom Conflict. Dear Classroom, school choice is certainly a lightning rod, but your children's education is not a group project. So while others might have opinions or compelling arguments, this decision belongs to you and your wife. At this point, it's necessary to say that clearly and plainly to your sister. I respect your opinion about your kid's school. I appreciate your caring so much about my kids. And the more times we talk about it, the less it feels like a conversation and more like a debate. Debate is getting in the way of our relationship, and I don't want that. So for me, this subject is closed. Can you respect that? One of the key points here is her dogmatic insistence in getting in the way of your relationship. There are ways of pointing this out without explicitly blaming her, but she needs to understand that while she may feel the best course of action is to harangue you until you see her side, it's actually hurting her cause. If she pushes back, remind her that every moment you spend talking about your kid's school is a moment you and she could be engaging in other ways with each other and building other aspects of your relationship. It may even be necessary to say, I know you think I'm wrong. This isn't life or death. I need you to let me be wrong in peace. Dear Eric, this is in reference to Fed Up, a stepmother who wrote that she despised her stepson. When I married my husband 42 years ago, his daughter was 11 years old. His ex-wife said she would never let her live with us, but 1 year later she moved in. I was 27 years old and had no idea what I was doing with an 11-year-old stepchild. We clashed at every turn. We were all miserable, but consistently saw our therapist to help us navigate the rocky waters. In retrospect, I realized that I didn't understand what she needed and can now clearly see how much I failed her. She is now 52 and lives close by with our 2 amazing grandsons, whom I love more than anything. She and I have become incredibly close, and I cherish our relationship so much. We talk about our history together, and we have apologized for our past behavior, but with the understanding that we did our best and are just so grateful for each other. Being a step-parent is incredibly challenging, but what helped us survive was my husband's willingness to do whatever it took to keep our family intact. He was the glue that held us all together. I hope Fed Up can take a step back and put the work into the relationship that is needed. From grateful step-parent. Dear step-parent, thank you for this perspective. This letter generated a lot of feedback, much of it echoing what you shared. I want to underscore something very wise that you shared. You were both doing your best, and yet there was still conflict. This is the hard truth of some phases of some relationships. This isn't to say that every conflict has to be endured, but rather that sometimes, particularly with adult-child conflicts, the adult has to be very intentional about trying their best and assuming the best for the child. Often children find themselves in situations over which they have no say. This can be frightening, frustrating, and disempowering. Adults have maturity, experience, and power. It's imperative that we use them with grace and kindness. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Trump says U.S. is in heated talks with Iran war as it escalates. Washington. President Trump said he was in heated negotiations involving the war with Iran after mediator Pakistan asked for a 2-week extension of his Tuesday deadline for Tehran to open the Strait of Hormuz. I can't tell you because right now we're in heated negotiations, Trump said in a telephone interview with Fox News when asked about the Pakistani request. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said in a statement earlier that Trump has been made aware of the proposal and a response will come. Those comments came shortly after Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif posted on social media that talks were progressing steadily, strongly, and powerfully, and that his country asked Iran to open Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. I can say this, that I know him very well. He's a highly respected man over, Trump said, referring to Sharif. Trump earlier Tuesday threatened to wipe out Iran's whole civilization as the U.S. continued acts on the country's main oil export facility. That prompted Iranian mediators to halt its participation in diplomatic discussions, according to a person familiar with the matter who asked not to be identified discussing private deliberations. Behind the scenes, mediators then raced to keep ceasefire talks on track. A senior White House official downplayed Iran's maneuver and said that legitimate negotiations continued to take place. Trump said Monday it was highly unlikely he would agree to back off his deadline again. That led to Trump's Tuesday 8 p.m. deadline has been marked by military escalation and increasingly bellicose threats from the U.S. president. Earlier in the day, American forces struck sites on Karg Island similar to those that were hit in a round of attacks last month, but it didn't target energy infrastructure, according to U.S. officials. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will, Trump posted on social media. Maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. Even as the U.S. and Israel kept up attacks on infrastructure earlier on Tuesday, Trump's threat raised the specter of massive new bombing campaigns, far exceeding anything they've carried out over the course of a campaign that began February 28th. Oil prices fell in post-settlement trading after Sharif's post, with Brent sliding to as low as 104.50 after settling near 109. The conflict already has triggered a global energy crisis and threatened broader economic prospects. The International Monetary Fund is poised to cut its forecast for global growth as a result of the war, Director Kristalina Georgieva told Bloomberg News in Washington. We're on the way of upgrading our growth projections for 2026, she said. Given the impact of the war, we're going to downgrade them. The U.S. leader's latest ultimatum marks a critical juncture in the war that has killed more than 5,200 people, most of them in Iran and Lebanon, and seen energy facilities struck across the region. The president began issuing deadlines on March 21st to force Iran to open Hormuz, which carries roughly a fifth of seaborne oil shipments, and has repeatedly extended the deadline. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations said his country remained open to talks but would take action if Trump made good on his latest threats to target civilian infrastructure. Iran will not stand idle in the face of such egregious war crimes, Amir Sayed Iravani said during a meeting of the UN Security Council. It will exercise without hesitation its inherent right of self-defense and will take immediate and proportionate reciprocal measures. Russia and China vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that would have encouraged efforts to revive shipping traffic in the Strait, amid concerns that would have tacitly condoned military action. Trump said that freedom of navigation through Hormuz must be part of any deal. He has previously threatened to destroy Iranian power plants, bridges, and other infrastructure as part of his ultimatum. The United Nations has warned that indiscriminate targeting of civilian infrastructure could constitute a war crime, while Trump said he's not at all concerned about the potential outcome. Speaking earlier in Budapest, Vice President Vance said he's confident Iran will issue a response in time, but he also hinted at a military operation that would surpass anything the U.S. and Israel have waged so far against Iran. They've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use, Vance said in Hungary. The President of the United States can decide to use them, and he will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct. After a social media account run by former Kamala Harris campaign staffers said Vance's remarks implies Trump might use nuclear weapons, an account on X run by White House communications staff slammed that interpretation, saying, literally, nothing at VP said here implies this, you absolute buffoons. But in an email exchange with CQ Roll Call, a White House official, granted anonymity to be candid, did not rule out the use of nuclear weapons. As Trump ramped up his rhetoric Tuesday morning, Democratic lawmakers began issuing condemnations, with one House Democrat calling on cabinet officials to remove the president from office. Representative Mark Pocan, Democrat Wisconsin, wrote on X that officials should invoke the 25th Amendment right now. Trump is too unhinged, dangerous, and deranged to have the nuclear codes. Another Wisconsinite, Republican Senator Ron Johnson, said he was hoping and praying that it was all just bluster from Trump. I do not want to see us start blowing up civilian infrastructure, he told CNN on Tuesday. We are not at war with the Iranian people. We are trying to liberate them. Strikes on Kharg Island are seen as particularly sensitive given its central role in the domestic and global energy market. Fox News says U.S. targeted bunkers, a radar station, and ammunition storage on Kharg, alongside an unintentional hit on the island's landing docks. Elsewhere, 2 people were killed in a U.S.-Israeli attack on a railway bridge near the Iranian city of Gashan on Tuesday, state-run Nour News reported. Israel is preparing for the possibility that fighting could continue for several more weeks, and on Tuesday told Iranians not to use their country's railway network until 9 p.m. local time, the type of warning sometimes issues before attacks on civilian areas. Trump has repeatedly sent conflicting signals on what he'll do with Iran's oil sector, which he has openly coveted. At times, he's mused about seizing control of the country's crude, an outcome that he sees as expanding U.S. energy dominance and in turn earning the U.S. leverage in talks with China, people familiar with the matter say. Iran has warned it would respond to that type of escalation by ramping up its own attacks on energy infrastructure in the Gulf, a move that could heighten the global fuel squeeze and amplify damage to the world economy. The Islamic Republic launched 7 ballistic missiles and several more drones at Saudi Arabia overnight into Tuesday, and debris from interceptions fell in the vicinity of some energy sites, the kingdom said. A key bridge connecting Bahrain and Saudi Arabia was briefly closed as precaution. Meanwhile, some of Trump's statements have raised questions about international law. His threat to blow up every bridge and power plant in Iran would be so far-reaching that some experts in military law said it could constitute a war crime. The issue could turn on whether the power plants were legitimate military targets, whether the attacks were proportional compared with what Iran has done, and whether civilian casualties were minimized. Shortly after the war started, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said there would be no stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. A spokesman for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday warned that attacking such infrastructure is banned under international law. Even if specific civilian infrastructure were to qualify as a military objective, Stéphane Dujarric said an attack would still be prohibited if it risks excessive incidental civilian harm. Rachel Van Landingheim, a Southwestern Law School professor who served as a judge advocate general in the U.S. Air Force, said civilians are likely to die if power is cut to hospitals and water treatment plants. What Trump is saying is, we don't care about precision, we don't care about impact on civilians. We're just going to take out all of Iranian power generating capacity, the retired lieutenant colonel said.
Thank you, Larry. Vance urges voter in Hungary to support Orban in pivotal race. Vice President Vance on Tuesday urged Hungarians to back Prime Minister Viktor Orban in the upcoming elections, dubbing the populist leader a defender of Western civilization during a visit to Hungary meant to help push Orban over the finish line. Vance's 2-day visit to Budapest was the clearest sign yet that President Trump's administration is going all in for Orban victory when Hungarians go to the polls on Sunday. With only 5 days until the vote, Orban, the European Union longest-serving leader and a close Trump ally, is trailing in the polls. Speaking before over 1,000 Orban supporters at an election rally at a sports arena in Budapest, Vance campaigned openly for the autocratic leader, telling the crowd, "We have got to get Viktor Orban re-elected as Prime Minister of Hungary, don't we?" Orban is running for his 5th straight term as Prime Minister. He and his nationalist populist Fidesz party are facing their toughest race in 2 decades against center-right challenger, the TISA party led by Peter Magyar, that could bring an end to Orban's 16 years in power. Orban has bristled at the slightest mention of the Hungarian election by any of his EU partners, decrying any expression of support for his opponent as a grave breach of Hungary's sovereignty and meddling in the election. Yet Vance's appearance alongside Orban at the election rally dubbed a Day of Friendship event, was an unusual step from a foreign leader and a break with most politicians who avoid taking an active role in the political campaigns of other countries. To loud applause, Vance asked rally attendees, "Will you stand for Western civilization? Will you stand for freedom, for truth, and for the God of our fathers? Then, my friends, go to the polls on the weekend. Stand with Viktor Orban because he stands for you, and he stands for all these things," Vance said. Long accused by critics of taking over Hungary's institutions, clamping down on press freedom, and overseeing entrenched political corruption, charges he denies, Orban has become an icon in the global far-right movement. Trump has repeatedly endorsed Orban's candidacy for re-election, and many in the Make America Great Again movement approve of the Hungarian leader's opposition to immigration, curtailing of LGBTQ rights, and capture of the media and academia. But with most independent polls showing a double-digit deficit for Fidesz, Among decided voters ahead of the April 12th vote, Orban has sought to boost his profile by appearing publicly with his international admirers. Vance spoke at length on Tuesday about what he views as the civilization dangers posed by progressivism, faceless bureaucrats, and censorship. He lauded Orban for his strong stand against immigration and his adversarial approach to the European Union. I admire what you're fighting for, Vance said. I am here because President Trump and I wish for your success, and we are fighting right here with you. Vance used his phone to call Trump from the lectern to loud applause after first reaching an automated message about the caller's voice box not being set up yet. Trump answered the call and told the crowd through a microphone, "I love Hungary and I love that Victor. I tell you, he's a fantastic man." Trump said Orban had not allowed migrants to storm and ruin Hungary. He's kept Hungarian people in your country, Trump said. The Trump administration's embrace of Orban reflects the affinity for European far-right parties broadly, and the admiration from Spain to France to Germany and to the Netherlands has been mutual. Orban has long been a thorn in the side of the EU and has tested the bloc system of governance by frequently using his veto power to paralyze decision-making in order to leverage concessions. Last month, he vetoed a major €90 billion, $104 billion, EU loan to Ukraine, angering the bloc's leaders who accused him of hijacking the critical aid while undermining the EU in an effort to win his election. At the rally on Tuesday, Orban declared that freedom-loving Americans and Hungarians must unite and save Western civilization. To do this, we must fight the progressives that nest in Brussels, the EU's de facto capital. He continued. He declared that Hungary has launched a reconquista of EU institutions, which will bring new patriotic governments to power. Late last month, Orban hosted dozens of allies from around Europe and beyond at the Hungarian iteration of the Conservative Political Action Conference and at a meeting of the far-right Patriots for Europe party family, the third largest group in the European Parliament. Trump sent a video message to CPAC Hungary saying Orban had his complete and total endorsement and was a fantastic guy. Still, Trump's recent approach to foreign affairs has reverberated in Europe, with his actions over Greenland, Venezuela, and Iran straining those relationships. Some commentators have suggested support from Vance and Trump may not help boost Orban's popularity at home. Orban, however, has remained deferential and echoed Trump's false claims that he won the 2020 election. Orban's government has broken with most EU countries by refusing to assist Ukraine with financial assistance or weapons to ward off Russia's full-scale invasion. Meanwhile, it has remained firmly committed to purchasing Russian energy despite EU efforts to wean off such supplies. In November, Hungary received an exemption from U.S. sanctions on Russian oil and gas after a White House meeting between Orban and Trump. Yet at a joint news conference with Orban earlier on Tuesday, Vance seemed to contradict U.S. efforts to push its allies to break with Russian energy, excoriating other EU countries for moving to ease their imports of Russian fossil fuels in response to the war. It's funny to watch prime ministers and leaders in some of the Western European capitals talk about the energy crisis when, frankly, they should have been following the policies of Viktor Orban, he said. Despite his clear endorsement of Orban, Vance lashed out at the EU for what he said was one of the worst examples of foreign election interference that I've ever seen or ever even read about. Vance did not address numerous recent reports that Russian secret services are meddling in Hungary's election to tip it in Orban's favor. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Political Notebook, Trump Jr. criticizes EU on trip abroad. Banja Luka, Bosnia-Herzegovina. Donald Trump Jr. lashed out at the European Union on Tuesday, saying its liberal policies were discouraging investment and predicted a major fracture between the bloc's eastern and western member states. The eldest child of the U.S. president said that the biggest players, the biggest names in banking and finance, in tech and AI across the board, believe that Europe is a disaster, but the disaster that they feel also needs to be fixed. The only way it gets fixed, though, in my opinion, is if they, Europe, get out of their own way, Trump Jr. said during a business discussion in the northwestern Bosnian town of Banja Luka. According to video recordings provided by the official television RTRS television, Banja Luka is the main town in Republika Srpska, the Serb-run part of Bosnia whose leaders are staunch admirers of President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The press office of the U.S. Embassy in Sarajevo, Bosnia's capital, told the Associated Press in an email that Trump Jr. came in a private capacity. The visit here was nonetheless seen as a boost of the Serb separatist political leadership. Trump Jr.'s trip came as Vice President Vance traveled to Hungary to support the re-election bid of nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban before a highly contested vote. Bosnian Serb politicians and former Republika Srpska President Milorad Dodik, an ally of Orban, said on X that the two visits signal an important shift of the U.S. administration under the leadership of President Trump and the care for the part of Europe regarding the position of Christians. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555. And thanks for caring. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service with the New York Times Style section. Following that at noon, we have the USA Today. Stay with us. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes